Hi, I'm Loris Alexander. This is Bridge City News, and here are some of the top stories we've been following. 18 new COVID cases in Lethbridge and 415 across Alberta. Plus, the U.S. presents a third vaccine to prevent COVID-19. And Lethbridge potentially to opt out of the centralized EMS dispatch.
Your nation. Your province. Your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition.
Thanks for joining us. Since Friday's update, 6 Albertans died from COVID, including 3 in the Central Zone, 2 in the Calgary Zone, and 1 in the South Zone. To date, there's 1,883 Albertans that have died from COVID. Provincially, 262 patients are currently hospitalized, including 51 who have been admitted to intensive care. The U.S. now has a third vaccine to prevent COVID-19. The Food and Drug Administration cleared a Johnson & Johnson shot that works with just 1 dose instead of 2.
But this is really good news. That means we have the opportunity for even more people to get immunized as soon as possible against this terrible pandemic. We had 2 emergency use authorized vaccines, and now we have 3. And the third one is a single dose from J&J, which makes it a little easier to organize. But I think the bottom line would be whatever vaccine you get offered, take it. They are all really good. And the most important thing we can do right now is to get as many shots in as many arms as we can. But what people, I think, are mostly interested in is it going to keep me from getting really sick? Will this vaccine keep me out of the hospital, out of the ICU? And worse yet, will it keep me from dying from this terrible disease? The good news is all of these say yes to that. I hope everybody is aware of just how amazing it is that we can talk here today at the end of February about a third vaccine that has gone through rigorous trials and has been proven safe and effective in tens of thousands of people. We are going to get through this by moving the vaccines forward as fast as we can and getting everybody in our country and eventually the world immunized against COVID-19.
Lethbridge City Council has its eyes focused up north. The regional municipality of Wood Buffalo recently decided to attempt to opt out of the centralized EMS dispatch within the province of Alberta. City Council told the city manager Tuesday night to gather more information about Lethbridge potentially doing the same.
At this point, we would be watching what happens and having our legal people observe what occurs on March 9th through 11th at the injunction hearing and see what lessons there are for the city of Lethbridge. If the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo is successful, and if we haven't made some significant progress with the province, I think that's helpful to our case.
All 911 calls in Lethbridge that require an ambulance are now redirected to a call center located in Calgary. Junior hockey clubs in Alberta are struggling financially during the pandemic. With no way of bringing in fans, the province has launched a virtual 50-50 draw to help. 20 WHL clubs will have the opportunity to offset lost revenues. And as Ainsley O'Reilly explains, our local Lethbridge Hurricanes are a part of that group.
Of the 5 Alberta teams in the Central Division, Lethbridge is the only community-owned, which during the pandemic has presented its challenges.
As you can tell, my palms are sweaty every day for the last little while, trying to figure out ways that we're going to try to overcome this year's financial losses.
The province announced Monday that the 50-50 draws will run each weekend in March and will also support the Alberta Junior Hockey League.
This is a vital step that will help to see junior hockey keep going on in Alberta.
Clubs will be required to share a portion of the funds with local charities. Back in January, the Saskatchewan government dished out $1 million for the SJHL. And although the lottery won't guarantee the Canes a specific dollar amount, the team is optimistic.
Every dollar that gets spent on those 50-50 tickets gets us a little closer to that break even. I'm not by any means saying that we're going to get close to a break even, but there's wishful thinking, I guess you could say.
In-stadium 50-50 draws of the past have been quite popular for the Hurricanes, and they're hoping to generate that same success.
The early buy-in, hopefully that, people jump on board and realize by buying this 50-50 what it's doing to all the communities in Alberta. And if they get on board with it, hopefully we can see the growth that some of the NHL teams have seen grow, but that'll remain to be seen.
For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
Students enrolled in the Integrated Management Experience Program in the University of Lethbridge's Dillon School of Business have taken charge of the Streets Alive Mosaic fundraiser. The students say that this beautiful piece of artwork will go towards fundraising efforts at Streets Alive mission in our city. Micah Quinn has the story.
Mural Mosaic has done work in the past for the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, and now they'll be designing this new mural for the Streets Alive Mosaic fundraiser.
So what the Mosaic fundraiser really is it is a collaborative community art piece. That's what it is, right? So what that means, if you're not familiar with what the term mural is, it's a bigger picture with smaller pictures inside of it. You can actually buy different tiers. We have it tiered. We have a few tiers that you can buy of different sizes and different packages that you can get along with it, right? We have 4x4 tile and an 8x8 tile, and there is 2 different 4x4 and 2 different 8x8s. And there's actually a package that also comes with, the tiers you can get shipped all the way from the top end. You can get this, we ship this really cool this really cool thing straight from Mural Mosaic. They're the artists. They're based in Sturgeon County, Alberta. I think that's just north of Edmonton. They put great work together, and some of the, besides just the tile on the wall, which is already awesome, you also will get a thing you can put in your home, a canvas of the mural, an actual picture of the mural, along with a picture of the tile that you actually put in.
The fundraiser is emphasizing the theme of human connection and hope, and when the public choose their tiles, they can include a picture that is meaningful to them.
So a picture of your grandmother, a loved one, somebody who you haven't seen in a long time, maybe a role model or a hero, and that's what we mean by human connection.
One of the driving forces for the students in making this fundraiser was to bring a connection during a time when so many of us are feeling disconnected.
So we felt like this would be a good way of having all these pictures of all these people showing their support for people that are in need and saying, we are still here and we still support you.
Donations will be accepted until the end of March, and the start of May is when the mural should be up on the side of the Streets Alive Mission building. To purchase a tile and make a donation to this fundraiser, you can visit streetsalive.mosaic.ca. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Albertans are not supposed to go out unless it's within their own family or close contacts. This has not been easy for business owners who rely on foot traffic. The Movie Mill is one of those businesses. Owner Len Binning has found a creative way for families to get out and enjoy movies again.
We are offering family bookings for same households. Currently, that's limited to 6 people, just think of it as a single table in a restaurant, except you've got the entire theater to yourself. We will be providing food, so we're under the guise of a pub, so to speak. You'll get your any size pop and popcorn included in the price, and that includes a licensed film. We've got about 4 really good family-friendly ones to choose from, and certain approved licensed Blu-rays may be shown as well.
Recapping one of our top news stories. Since Friday's update, 6 Albertans died from COVID, including 3 in the Central Zone, 2 in the Calgary Zone, and 1 in the South Zone. To date, 1,883 Albertans have died from COVID. Provincially, 262 patients are currently hospitalized, including 51 who have been admitted to intensive care. And taking a look at weekend weather, just a few clouds overnight with a low of 2 degrees and a west wind gusting from 60 to 80 kilometers per hour. On Monday, a mix of sun and cloud, becoming sunny in the afternoon, along with a high of plus 12 degrees.
Today's weather is brought to you by ColumbianDirect.com. Café Coffee, specialty coffee from our family to yours.
After the break, BCN's Jeanette Rocher talks to Rob Reno, author of the book 5 Reasons for Spiritual Apathy in Teens. Stay with us.
Teenagers have always given their parents gray hair over the generations. Is this the same for all generations, though, or is there even more reason to be concerned about today's teens when it comes to faith in God, particularly? Today's guest is Dr. Rob Reno, the founder of Visionary Family Ministries and author of 5 Reasons for Spiritual Apathy in Teens. He joins me via Skype from Wheaton, Illinois. Rob, welcome, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. I've really been looking forward to this.
Awesome. So, Dr. Reno, your book starts right off by saying that the church is facing a crisis. So, can you explain this?
Yeah, regardless of what study you choose to look at, and there have been a bunch of them, the majority of kids growing up in our Christian homes and Christian churches are leaving the faith when they become adults. Or some of them may stick around church and check that church box, but they don't have that vibrant living faith in Christ that we want. And we came through the 20th century, and what happened is that a lot of parents, well-meaning Christian parents, but a lot of parents delegated the spiritual training of their kids to the church and to the Christian school. So they dropped them off at church, dropped them off at Sunday school, youth group, maybe gave them Christian education, and they kind of delegated that task to other people, rather than this biblical model of moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas being the primary spiritual trainers for our children in the home. So the church is waking up to this next generation crisis, and part of the answer is engaging parents so that we would take the lead with our kids.
That's interesting. So, how would you define apathy? And would you say that today's teen generation is any different than previous generations?
Sure. Well, apathy is just a word that means without feeling, pathos. So the number one word for a teenager that's apathetic is whatever. Okay, so whatever about school, whatever about family, whatever about spiritual things. You ask them to pray, or you say, hey, can we go to church? And it's a lot of eye rolling and sighing. They just seem kind of disconnected. Now, your question about, has this always been the case? You know, the gospel advances through the world generationally. That's the way God fills the earth with his people. And so Satan and the demons understand that. So they attack the parent-child relationship so ferociously. They, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, moms and dads, set your timer. You can be sure that there's going to be spiritual attack on your relationship with your kids, because the enemy does not want you passing your faith to the next generation.
That is scary. Now, Rob, you have some personal experience with going through challenges as a teen and as a kid yourself. So can you share a bit about your situation as a teenager?
Sure. Well, we're also going through challenges as a parent. My wife, Amy, and I have been married 26 years together. We have 7 children, ages 23 to 7. So I've got 1 married, I've got 2 in college, I've got a high schooler, a junior higher, a 5th grader, and a 1st grader. So we're living this, right now as we're raising our own kids. But yeah, growing up, my mom was the first Christian in our whole family tree. And she came to Christ when I was a baby, when I was 3 months old. So when my parents got married, neither one of them were Christians. My mother was my father's 4th wife. My father was my mother's 2nd husband. So they just came from a lot of background of brokenness. And then when I was 15, my parents got divorced. After my mom became a Christian, my dad kind of thought that my mom had become like a crazy religious person, and he doubled down on his atheism and on his secularism. And they had all sorts of problems in the marriage, but the straws that broke the camel's back was my dad had extra relationships outside the marriage. And so here I am, 14 years old, you discover that dad has behaved like this, and that your parents are getting divorced, and you're selling your house, and you're moving and changing schools in the middle of high school. It was the most traumatic time of my life. And it took God a lot of years of bringing me to a place of forgiveness for my dad. And I'd love to tell you that part of the story too, maybe another time, or if you want to talk about it. But it took God a lot of years of bringing me to a place of healing through that. But God did use that really dark time in my life to give me a heart for families and to give me a heart for other teenagers that were going through difficult things.
And that's how you started your ministry?
Right.
Okay, excellent. Maybe talk a little bit about what you do in your ministry. You work with teens, like, is it a daily, weekly?
Sure. Well, Visionary Family Ministries had its heart start in 2004. I had been a youth pastor for 10 years at a church outside Chicago. Amy and I had 4 children during those first 10 years. And as a youth pastor, the number one passion of my life was passing my faith to other people's children. So I would pray with other people's children, read the Bible with other people's children, take other people's children on retreats and mission trips. It was wonderful. But the problem was, I was praying with other people's kids and I was not praying with my kids. I'm reading the Bible with other people's kids. I'm not reading the Bible with my kids. I was a spiritual leader at church and abdicating my responsibilities at home spiritually. So that summer of 2004, God brought me to a place of repentance and brokenness, and he turned my heart to the ministry of my family and the ministry of my kids. And a few years later, then Amy and I launched Visionary Family Ministries, where our mission is to build the church through a global reformation of family discipleship. So we do parenting and marriage conferences at churches around the world. Now that COVID is loosening up a little bit, we're back to our live events, but also reaching lots of families online and through our books. And if you're looking for some equipping and strengthening for your parenting, for your family, for your marriage, please connect with us at visionaryfam.com, visionaryfam.com.
Sounds good. Well, you have a lot of kids. So did you see this spiritual apathy happening in any of your many children?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me just tell you what I expect, okay, from my kids, let's say from the ages of 10 to 20, all right? If we were going to do a graph of my expectations for their growth, what I expect is every single year they will get more mature, more responsible, more godly, more honoring. Every year, better and better. That's my expectation. Now, I ask parents around the world, how many of you from 10 to 20 had a graph like that? How many of you for every year, 10 to 20, you just got more and more mature, more and more godly, more and more responsible? And of course, we all shake our heads. We say, no way, right? That wasn't me. I was up and down and up and down and up and down through this incredibly difficult time of life. So part of what we have to do as parents is if we expect this slow, steady, wonderful maturity, we're going to be sorely disappointed. So raising teenagers, a wonderful 10 years is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And boy, if you do that over and over again for the rest of your life following Jesus, you go forward. And that's been our experience with all of our kids.
Yeah, I was going to say those are really high expectations, especially for
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, especially for teenagers, where the teen years are so volatile. You got all those raging hormones and all kinds of things happening in their bodies. Never mind trying to spiritually grow as well. So you say that parents need to be realistic then about their teens, right?
Yeah, be realistic. And I'll give you an example of like my own hypocrisy, okay, as a dad. I will say to one of my children, I will look them in the eye and I will say, I don't expect you to be perfect. I expect you to make mistakes. Right? It's a wonderful thing for a father to say. Then an hour later, when my teenager does something wrong, I look at them and I say, I can't believe you did that. Right after I just told them that I don't expect you to be perfect and I expect you to make mistakes. But you see, here's the key ingredient. See, a lot of parents have a closer heart connection with their children when they're young. When you've got those toddlers, those elementary school kids, maybe those prayers at bedtime or the family Bible time or things like that. But as they get older, schedules get crazier, the relationship gets tenser. What happens is that teenagers oftentimes pull their hearts away from their parents, and parents disconnect from their teenagers at the time of life that their teenagers need them more than ever before. So the teen years is not a time to pull back from your kids. It's a time to press closer with them. It's a time to beef up the prayer with them, time to beef up your time in God's word. It's time to press into those difficult conversations. It's not a time that they need you to disengage. They need you closer than ever.
Okay, so what can parents do to hopefully bring about change in those areas?
Well, the first thing I would do is if maybe you just resonated with what I just shared, you say, yeah, when my son or daughter was younger, even some of these spiritual practices, we did pray before bed, or we did try to have some spiritual conversations and some time in God's word in the home. Maybe that child's 12, 14, 16, and you don't do that much anymore. Go to your son or daughter, repent to them, confess to them, and just say, hey, when you were younger, I was more intentional about connecting with you spiritually and having more heart conversations. And I don't know what's happened. I know life's got nuts and we've got busy, but I really believe that this time of life is a time for us to reconnect spiritually. And I was wondering if we could maybe start praying together 2 or 3 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week. Maybe I could text you some scriptures that might encourage you once or twice a week. So you're as a parent going to take an awkward, humble step toward the child and ask them if they would be willing to connect with you spiritually in a deeper way.
That's amazing. I really love that idea. What are some of the reasons why teens are pulling back? What's some of the reasons for the apathy that we're seeing in them?
Yeah, well, I'll give you the quick crash course, and we walk through these in this book that you talked about, this 5 reasons for spiritual apathy. But 5 very common reasons why kids become hard-hearted towards spiritual things. One is that the parent's heart is not turned to the child. In other words, the parent is not engaged in this mission of connecting with their kids spiritually. The second reason is the teenager takes their heart away from the parent. So we've got a parent who's trying to pursue, but the teenager becomes hard-hearted. Third, the presence of secret sin. When there's secret struggle in a teenager's life, it becomes this oppressive, guilt-filled wrapping around their heart. And a lot of times that comes through in a very apathetic attitude. The fourth area is a lack of spiritual nourishment. It may be that your child is not spiritually strong because they're not getting any spiritual food. And then a fifth common reason is this spirit of rebellion. Now, we counsel a lot of parents, and I'll have a lot of dads come to me and they'll say, well, I'll tell you what my kid's problem is. He's got a rebellious spirit. And, we fix that rebellious spirit, everything's going to be fine. Okay, maybe that is a root that's going on, but we really work with parents. Before you go there, let's spend a whole lot of time looking at these other things. Is your heart turned to your child? Is your child's heart turned to you? Is your child have secret struggles that's really affecting their life that you don't even have any clue about? And are you really working to get them spiritual food? Let's spend some time there, before we just quickly go to, well, kid's got a rebellious attitude and we need to fix that.
Right. Now, you say that one of the problems with parent-teen relationships has to do with secret sin. You just mentioned that as number 4. So what are the most common of those?
Well, the most common for teenagers have to do with sexual sin. If you ask adults and you say, hey, how many of you were pretty good kids when you were teenagers? Some people, half the folks raise their hand, right? Some people say, no, I was not a good kid. But half the folks say they raise their hand, they say, yeah, I was a pretty good kid. And if you ask those folks who raised their hand to say, hey, how many of you had some just secret struggles with your sexual formation and sexual thoughts and lust and sexual behavior? How many of you had some secret struggles that your parents didn't really have any clue about? Well, they all raised their hand. And so then I'll ask, well, how many of you have pretty good kids? Your kids are pretty good kids. They say, oh yeah, my kid's a pretty good kid. Well, what's the percentage chance then that they probably have some secret struggles with their sexual formation, sexual identity, lust, sexual behavior? 100%. Every single solitary person has struggles in this area. And because our sexuality is built so deeply into how God made us, the shame and the guilt that goes with sexual struggles is so high, which makes it so hard for children to talk to their parents about this. So we as parents have got to take the lead, go to those kids, try to open up those conversations, share with them some of our struggles when we were teenagers. They need to hear that stuff in an appropriate way and ask God to help create a heart connection there.
That's great advice. So how should parents handle the situation if your kid says, I don't want to go to church anymore? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a really sad situation. And I would encourage parents to ask for the Lord to give you his heart toward the child. Because when a child says that, a lot of parents, our instinct is just to be very angry and to be very harsh. When the reality is that your child is really struggling and suffering spiritually. They are not in a strong place in their relationship with God, which is really, really sad. Now, what we counsel parents to do, and this is a general advice because there could be a situation where I might counsel otherwise, but generally speaking, we encourage parents to say, listen, part of the deal of living in our house is that our family attends church. This is part of what we do. So when the day comes that you are on your own, you will no longer be required to come to church with us. And we also don't expect you to come to church doing cartwheels and being happy and thrilled to be there, but we do ask you to come with a pleasant attitude. We do ask you to come and be present, to not make this a negative situation for your siblings. But the mistake that parents make is they say, okay, I've got a child who doesn't want to go to church. They think that like requiring or forcing the child to go to church solves the underlying problem. It doesn't solve the underlying problem. There are some spiritual roots and some spiritual brokenness. The child needs relationship with mom and dad. The child needs time with mom and dad, where mom and dad are saying, hey, listen, I totally understand that church isn't a place you want to be right now. I totally understand that, even faith in God might not be something you're interested in right now. Can you talk to me about that? Help me understand. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? I really want to understand. Now we're doing the heavy lifting spiritually with the child, and that's so much more important than you need to go to church because you're a part of this family.
Your book has so much wisdom in it. It should probably be in the hands of every parent out there. Rob, thank you so much for being with us today. Dr. Rob Reno is the author of 5 Reasons for Spiritual Apathy in Teens. We appreciate having you on.
Thank you so much.
The world has changed with the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. The response to this has really varied from country to country, but it seems the most common response is a high degree of anxiety and worry. Joining me now to talk about it in studio is Graham Bretherick, a registered psychologist, president of Run Free Ministries in Lethbridge, also author of The Fear Shift, Dominated by Fear No More, available at runfreecounseling.com. Graham, welcome back to BCN.
Thank you for inviting me, Hal. Good to be here.
You bet. Now let's talk about COVID-19. A lot of people are impacted by this around the world. Here in Lethbridge, we have some cases here as well. When was the last time you saw the level of anxiety and fear so high?
Well, I don't think I've ever seen it so high as this. I'm just a little over 70, and I don't know that I've ever seen it in all of the things we've been through. I wasn't around when World War I and World War II were, obviously, right. But I have not seen it this high in a long time, maybe ever.
That's incredible. Yeah. Now, what is the difference between fear and simply really being concerned about something?
Well, no, let me step back. Fear actually has 2 sides to it. There's positive side of fear, and it's basically a good thing. Without fear, you'd get killed walking across the highway. Without fear, you could get, all kinds of problems. So we need fear to warn us. So fear basically works as a warning signal. However, the fear of fear, which is what I see going on now, I call negative fear, that fear is quite different because we get overwhelmed by the fear.
Okay, how about anxiety?
Well, anxiety is just repressed fear. So if you keep pushing the fear, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to think about it, you push it down, that's what anxiety is.
Some people say maybe the media is paying a little too much attention to COVID-19. But at the same time, the world is taking notice. Right. Thousands of people dying in Italy, not just in China. Right. It's rampant around the world right now, yes. So we want to be concerned. But is there a point in time when we're going beyond staying informed and maybe pushing negativity?
Yeah, let me just say this. The positive fear is really faith. All right, that if you look at what it is, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So we need wisdom. That's really an expression of faith. But if you think about what negative fear is, it's really be controlled by the fear of fear. So it depends what you focus on. So I just say this, that faith really has to do with focus. What are you focused on? So if you focus on the television, you focus on all the bad reports and constantly get that, and that's all you're getting, you're going to be fearful and you're going to be overwhelmed by it and you're going to become quite anxious.
With Bridge City News, we also like to include some good stories. Absolutely. When it comes to COVID-19, like there are different volunteer groups in Canada and the United States, they're helping even Holocaust survivors
right.
who are shut in their homes and making meals and bringing them meals. So it's nice to see the good things that humanity is doing at the same time, right? And that's pretty important, isn't it?
Yes. Well, you think back to some of the Jewish people who held people in their homes at the danger of their lives. And so why did they do it? Because they believed it was the right thing to do. They had a faith and believed in it was the right thing to do. But they took their lives in their hands in one sense, because if they got caught, they were dead. So I love the fear that turns into a positive thing, and we do good things because we're not afraid of being overwhelmed by what's happening around us.
Some people like to get their news sources as well from social media,
yes.
Whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so forth. Can we spend maybe too much time on social media that may impact our own psyche?
Well, I think we can, yeah. And again, it's focus. What are you focused on? So if all you read is all the negative stuff, then that starts to overwhelm you. Your emotional system can't actually handle that. You need to put a focus on some good things, some positive things.
Some structure.
Yes.
You know, it's funny because a lot of times we give our kids a certain amount of hours that they could spend maybe on their computers or on social media. Maybe we should do the same for ourselves, discipline ourselves, right?
Well, I watch the news because I want to be alert. I want to keep.
You're watching Bridge City News to see what's going on.
I am watching the news. I watch Bridge City News.
That's right. That's awesome.
So, but I'm also reading my Bible, and I'm also declaring Psalm 91 over my family and over my every day when my wife and I share communion together and we pray together, we read Psalm 91 over us and make that as a declaration. So I'm not living in the fear that I'm going to get COVID-19.
I think it's natural to get scared. A lot of us get scared
Yeah.
for whatever happens, right?
Fear is natural.
So fear will come, but how can we really shift that fear into faith? That trusting God will provide and protect and watch over us?
Just what I've said is that if you don't worship the God who's over all of this, see, worship is a real help that way. And so is reading our Bibles, so is meditating, so is talking with other Christians who have enough faith. So I've been encouraging people in their faith. All right, so that's what I keep doing because what are we focused on again? I come back to it. What are we focused on?
A lot of people are concerned as well with COVID-19, the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus,
Sure.
that it's going to impact a lot of those who already have compromised immune systems,
Right.
such as our parents and our grandparents. How do we put some of those fears at ease? Because we're really worried about the elderly.
Right. Well, and I think that's the positive side of fear. Be alert. Be smart. You know, be aware that if you're in your 80s, you're going to be more vulnerable than if you're in your 40s or 30s, et cetera. But that focus is a good focus because then we're being smart. Like I think it's good to be careful with how much we're connecting with people. That's smart. But I'm not going to be afraid to go out in public because that would then control me. My fear then controls me. And I don't want that to happen. I want my faith to control me.
Graham, what do you say to people who've lost their jobs because of COVID-19? My daughter's one of them. She was working as a line cook in Ontario. Her restaurant shut down. A lot of people are fearful they're going to lose their jobs. And how are they going to pay their bills? Their rent, their food, or mortgage payments?
Well, again, let me take you back to if God is my provider, and therefore He's going to make provision in these difficult times. I understand the fear. I understand we have to be alert to it, and I understand that when we lose our job, we have to start thinking about what we're going to do. But at the same time, I've been through times when we haven't had much money. And so what did I do? Did I get fearful? Sometimes yes. Or did I go back and say, wait a minute now, who's my provider? Am I my own provider or is God my provider? And that's what carried me through. And I shifted my faith again and said, Father, you are my provider. I'm trusting you through this.
You know, sometimes people sit down, and I'm guilty of this myself sometimes. You get on your knees and you pray to your Heavenly Father. He'll provide and protect, and you'll leave it at the foot of the cross.
Right.
Then you get right back up and you take those worries right back from God, right?
Yes, I know.
So how do you get into practice of just leaving those problems at the cross?
Well, I mean, because I think we need constant reminders. We're slow learners, all right? So just constant reminders. Every day, that's what I say, my wife and I are choosing to have communion every day as the focus on the cross. That's what we're doing. And we're just simply saying, you're our protector, you're our provider, you're our peace, and we're going to operate in that. And we need that reminder because it's easy to shift back, whoops, everything else is very frightful out here. So I'm just keeping my focus here. I'm not unaware, I'm not naive about this, but I'm keeping my focus here.
A lot of people as well, Graham, are quite concerned about, you know, the consequences of the anxiousness, you know, maybe being sleepless,
right?
You know, maybe getting stressed out to the point that you have an ulcer perhaps.
Right.
So physiologically speaking, how can you control the anxiousness to the point where you don't make yourself sick?
Well, I think what we probably have to do is talk about it. Like anxiety usually happens because we push it down and we keep it quiet, we don't talk to anybody. It is much better to talk about it, but we're ashamed of our anxiety. We are ashamed of our fear focus. And so we just keep it quiet, and then what happens is it's turmoil inside of us. It's much better to sit down with someone and say, look, I'm afraid. All right, let's talk about it. Let's work it through. Let's pray it through. Let me help you change the focus, which is what we're doing in counseling. We're helping people shift the focus.
How about shift the focus onto something else, like working on a vehicle, doing some gardening perhaps? Springtime now?
It's a bit premature for gardening.
Well,
but when we come to it,
right?
that's true. I think
like
that's
hobbies,
good.
right?
Yes, I think that's a good thing to do, as long as that's not an escapism, You know, like I say, here's what I sense. People are way more full of fear than they realize. And so they push it down, and then something like this comes along, and all of a sudden, whoop, all this stuff comes to the surface. So what I want to do then is learn how to walk this out and work this through so that I actually gain mental health or emotional health through this process.
Do you think as well maybe COVID-19 is a good test of our own faith?
It is.
And our relationship with God?
I'm saying these days, how real is your faith? Does it work for you or is it religious? In other words, it works on a Sunday morning. I go and I do my Sunday morning thing and I come back, and then the next day on Monday, I'm back to living in worry and fear. By the way, if you're worrying, you're not trusting. If you're anxious, you're not trusting. Those are good signals. If I'm anxious, if I'm worrying, I'm not trusting. I'm not trusting God. So then I can confess that. That's one of the things I'm saying to people. Then just confess it. I'm worried, which means I'm not trusting. I repent. That is, I change my thinking from worrying, I'm going to solve my own problems, to being able to say, I trust you, Father. You are my provider. You're my protector. You're my peace.
How important is it then to really meditate on His Word?
Very important. I do it every day because I can't.
Does it give you that peace that you need then, right?
It does. It does for me. And I realize that sometimes when I'm dealing with counseling and people are quite anxious, I have to keep myself focused back for their sake and my sake on what I really believe. What do I really believe? So I'm reading the Bible with that in mind. Psalm 91, again, I just read that before. That's a really good one. But the other day I was reading in Nehemiah chapter 1 and 2 in my Bible reading, and Nehemiah has to go before the king. If he says the wrong things, off with his head. So he approaches this with prayer, and then he puts action to his prayer and then tells the king what's going on. Basically, the king says, why are you so down? Why is your face sad? Now, you're not allowed to be in the king's presence and have a sad face, apparently, in those days. But he did it, took a risk, and then God gave an option to be able to tell the king what was going on. His heart was heavy for Jerusalem, etc. But that he faced his fears.
As human beings, do you think we have a tendency to put more faith in our consequences rather than in trusting in God?
Oh, yes.
And that relationship?
Oh, yeah. It's the natural thing is to get focused on the world that I live in and the environment I live in. That's
and woe is me sometimes, a pity party, right?
Yeah, and pity really is a form of pride. You know, that self-pity is a form of pride. So if I'm focused on myself, I'm not walking in humility. And humility basically is saying, I trust you, Father. I trust you to take care of me during these times. These are actually not bad times. From my point of view, they're actually, I'm not being naive when I say that. There's lots going on. But it's great opportunity in the kingdom of God to advance the kingdom of God and say to people, where's your faith? Let me help you with it. Let me come alongside you.
How important is it then, Graham, to really focus on things we should be thankful for?
I like that. I think that's really good because otherwise you get into a negativity. So look, I've got this to be thankful, this, and you put it helps change the focus, helps change where you
count your blessings, right?
Name them one by one. That's right, the old hymn says, yeah. So it's good, we should be doing that. And we should be encouraging one another along the line, you know, because I know people, I talked to someone the other day who was really quite fearful. And I just said, let me just put a little different shift. And as I did, in about 15 minutes, that person has shifted from a fear focus to a faith focus.
How can we really help our children deal with anxiety?
Talk about it. Worst thing you can do is just be anxious. They pick it up. They sense that. So I just say, talk to your children. Open it up. Are you worried about something? Are you concerned about this? It depends on the age of the child. But I say, what are you worried about? Let's talk about it. That's one of the ways we shift from letting it control us because we push it down. Because often, again, we feel ashamed, which is hiding. We feel ashamed of our fear. I shouldn't be afraid. I shouldn't be afraid. But fear is a natural emotion. But I just not get caught in it. I don't want to get trapped by it.
I know a lot of times as well as a man, I can be fearful of a situation that I have no control over.
Right.
You know, because a lot of men, it's like we want to be able to control certain things and help our families the best we can. We want to problem solve, get it right in there. But sometimes you can't. And that's what's really difficult. And that can create more anxiousness.
Right.
Right?
Well, we like to stay in control. All of us do. I'm no different than anyone else. I like to stay in control. But I have to realize, basically, I worship a God who's controlling everything. The coronavirus has not caught God off guard. He's not shocked by it. Now, he didn't create it, but he's not caught off guard by it. So then I go back to God. All right, how do I handle in this time? How do I walk this out with faith? How do I become a positive influence instead of a negative influence?
Some people would ask as well, Graham, perhaps non-believers, why would God, your God, allow something like this to happen, to take so many innocent lives? COVID-19.
Yeah, it's not like he allows it to happen. It's the result of a sinful world we live in, and all the fear and all the anxiety and all the greed and all the stuff that's going on around us. I mean, that's a result of a fallen world. But God always says, I can turn all things from evil into good. So, that's what Romans 8:28 basically go back that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And that's my faith stand. I keep my focus on Jesus.
So Graham, some closing thoughts on a message you want to deliver to seniors who are watching, families who are watching, who are impacted by COVID-19, are concerned about the novel coronavirus.
Right, well, I'm a senior, right, and have been for quite a number of years, so I understand that. But I would say to seniors, if you become worried and anxious, use that as the first signal, I'm not really trusting God. My faith has to work for me. If it's not real, what is it really? It's religion. And I'm not into religion, I'm into reality.
A relationship.
A relationship with Jesus Christ. And if it doesn't work for me, why am I doing it?
Graham Bretherick, registered psychologist, president of Run Free Ministries in Lethbridge, and author of The Fear Shift, Dominated by Fear No More. Thanks a lot for joining me today in studio.
You're welcome, Hal. It's a joy and a pleasure.
Today's society puts a lot of pressure on young girls to have outward beauty. The Photoshop beauty pics on glossy magazines likely contribute to that. But what about beauty on the inside, which I feel is a lot more important? Joining me now in studio to talk about it is Renee Peterson. She's a registered nurse and the founder of the Beautiful Inside Academy. Welcome back to BCN, Renee.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Beautiful Inside Academy, what is it all about?
Well, Beautiful Inside Academy is something that I'm so deeply passionate about. I have been running this academy for 13 years, and it's a sacred place for young women to come and to have the exploration of that inner self, to develop those inner tools, inner strategies, inner mindsets to launch them to the next level of who they say they want to be. So, yeah.
Why is beauty on the inside so important?
Well, I believe that once you're connected to that place, I mean, you know as well as I do, right? You talk to someone, you see them, and then what actually comes out of them is what makes them actually truly beautiful. And so I think when they truly identify it on the inside, it just really helps them even appreciate the external even more, and just helps them connect to the beauty of their life, the beauty of who they can be, the beauty in others. So it's just fun, foundational work as far as I'm concerned.
I have a daughter who's 21 years of age. She's a beautiful young woman, inside and outside. And when she was younger, the preteen, sometimes the awkward years, she would always say, I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough, and I'm encouraging her, loving her, praying for her. I'm like, yes, you are, you're beautiful. But it didn't resonate with her. No matter what her mother or I said, it was like almost strangers saying, you're beautiful. Oh, I must be beautiful. Right. But when mom and dad said it didn't really resonate with her. Why do you think that is?
Well, I know it's kind of that adolescent brain, right? Like they just thinking, you're my parents, you have to love me, you have to say that about me. And they're already in that identity kind of questioning, going, who am I worthy? Am I lovable? Am I enough? And so that's where I tell the parents, hey, that's okay, that's normal. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but that's where I come in and I get to partner with you as a mom, partner with you as a dad, and support you in installing those beliefs that you so wish that your daughter would have at that time in her life. And so, yeah, it does. I actually kind of love it because it's just like I can also help make the relationship better. They're like, oh, wow, yeah, my mom says that or my dad says that. And so, okay, yeah, maybe that does have some clout. So it's really kind of magical at the same time as I do that inner work with them, help bridge and build those beautiful connections and foundations with parents as well.
So self-confidence is also very important, vital for our young people today, especially young girls. But social media can sometimes wreak havoc on a lot of young girls and their confidence.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, we're in this age where everything's blowing up, and parents are parenting in an age of social media that we've never experienced before, right? So you look at TikTok, the predators, the research all around that stuff. And so along with that, yeah, I mean, we have so many filters now on social media. And so these young women are seeing these images and thinking everybody's perfect. And that's a word that I hear a lot in my academy. Well, perfect, or this is perfect, or I look over at her, right? And so it's just really helping them disconnect from some of that. And like I tell them, you run your own race. race. Like get like the blinders on like a horse, and what are you focused on, and who do you want to be? And when you're looking over here and comparison, because that's what that breeds, as well as it also breeds like bullying. And so people just think, oh, well, I can say something behind a screen and well, whatever. And so the pain that happens, or that they've learning how to communicate, right? They're not learning this face-to-face or the power of communication. And so it's just this back and forth all on the media sites. Or
So how do you really explain, Renee, to a young person that what these trolls are saying on Twitter or Instagram is really irrelevant?
Yeah, well, it's...
You know?
And
it's
it
not
is
that important.
True, and I think it
It's keyboard warriors, right?
Well, yeah, right. That's very well said. And so I think what it boils down to is I really help them see, like, that through the mindset work, that they get to decide what they believe. And so I teach them to ask those pertinent questions and to not, and once again, to take their focus off of that. Like, why would you spend so many hours trolling anyways and giving your time and energy to that? And so where do you want your focus to be, and who do you want to be, and where do you want your time to be? And then they're kind of like, oh yeah, well that drains me to be doing that. And so just helping them develop those success habits and those strategies to not even be as tempted to go there.
How important is it for a young girl to have a mentor?
I think it's huge. I think it's everything. Like, I think you look at the resiliency model, and I think that our teenagers, they need a team. Like, if they need a counselor, great, let's get them in for a counselor. If they need a coach, let's get them with a coach. Like, let's buoy them up and support them in any way that they can. So they need that person that can be strong enough to also not buy into the lies that they're believing about themselves, or also buy into some of their manipulation, right? Where they're just kind of like, oh, well, that's how it is. But someone who's a strong, confident woman who can look at them and go, no, I'm going to actually challenge you on that. I'm going to stand in this space with you. I'm going to hold grace for you, and I'm going to hold you to a higher level of who I know you say you want to be. And then they're like, oh, okay.
Are there certain limits of what a mentor can and cannot do? And the reason I ask that, as a parent myself, a lot of times my kids would want to go down a certain path. I know this path will lead to destruction. Yeah. They're going to fall flat on their face because I went down a similar path when I was their age. Yeah. It's like, guys, it's not going to end well for you, right? So please don't go down the path, but you still have to let go, let God, let them do it. And sometimes they fail. It's like, oh my goodness. They're like, you know what? Dad, Mom, you were right.
Right.
So with a mentor, do you have to allow them to go through a similar path, similar experience?
Well, yeah, like, I mean, I can mentor them through those things, but if that's who they're saying they don't want to be, like, I don't know, it seems like I have some clout there, right? And so I'm not saying that they don't make mistakes, and sometimes failure is our greatest teacher, right? So I say to my girls, it's not about failing, but it's about never quitting. And so, like, what do you learn from those mistakes? And so, yeah, I mean, helping them understand that, hey, these will be the choices, but the choices also have consequences. You can make the choice, but you also don't get to choose the consequence. And so I think when you explain it to them in certain ways and help them see bigger picture, sometimes they do take a step back. And I mean, really, let's be honest, right? Because as parents, when we're saying don't do this, don't do that, when they're trying to assert their independence and they want to find their way, they feel like by saying, well, I'm going to do that, right? They feel like that's
sometimes in rebellion.
Perhaps, in rebellion, right? Yeah. But I think as a coach and somebody who can support a parent and saying, okay, well, I understand why your mom would say that, because let's have a look at this. This is how this could play itself out. And then, you know, get them out of that defiance, but get them more into alliance. And then they're kind of like, okay, I do want to do that. What's good for me?
Renee, how can we give our girls more of the tools they need to succeed in life today?
Well, I believe that's part of sending them to me.
There you go.
But I do believe, like, as parents today, what I kind of see as a weakness is that we want to be their friends, right? We want them to like us, and we're so much invested in wanting them to like us that sometimes it's hard for us to step in our full empowerment and say, okay, I want you to look at this. I want to challenge that mindset. Or if they're complaining and being in complete victim mode all the time, instead of us trying to fix it and make it better, to just actually, as a mom, as a dad, you know, be in our own sense of self and go, okay, well, I get that. You can choose to continue to think that. But then this is how you're going to continue to feel. So you get to decide.
You know, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Renee, because a lot of times as a dad, I'm a problem solver. I want to fix it.
Totally.
And then my wife says, no, you're not supposed to fix it. Just leave it alone. But I want to. I want to help. I know I can help, right?
Right.
And so that's frustrating for me sometimes as a father.
Yeah. But it's also not about stepping back, because sometimes I see parents just step away and they'll be like, oh, well, they're 18, they're 16. I guess they got to just learn it. And I don't buy into that philosophy either. I buy into, okay, I am that person, and I'm going to stand there in that space, and I'm going to hold that space for them. And if they're going to cry and wine or whatever, that I'm just going to still be there and I'm still going to coach them through it and just be like, hey, well, you get to choose, or how could you get yourself out of that, or how could you think of that differently, or what else could that mean? So as that parent standing in that space and not letting them be the victim, or not letting them manipulate you, right? Or as a parent going, okay, wow, that's bringing up my childhood thing that I wanted to fit in, so maybe I'm compromising and letting my daughter, go do these things because I didn't get to do those things. And so it's a whole complexity. And so I work with parents and teenage girls to kind of just help them create the tapestry of that beautiful relationship and how to dance together. So
how can we help our young people today learn how to develop good habits, not bad habits?
Well, I think that takes, as a parent, modeling it as well, right? How much time as a parent do we spend on social media and wasting our time and energy? Or, how much of time as parents do they see us, like not getting up or laying our stuff out the night before, or using a day timer, or being committed to our goals, committed to our dreams, committed to our personal work? So a lot of it is modeling. And then that's where I just love getting our kids and our teenage girls, especially in front of people like me that can say, hey, these are decisions of destiny. And if you start implementing this, or how are you going to think about this, or carve out that spiritual time for yourself so that you can really be connected on the inside, so that you can be full of purpose, and that you can, when something comes, you can have been like, okay, no, I know how I'm going to handle that, or this is my goal, or this is my focus. So it really all starts internally. And so getting them really connected to those places. And as parents, carving out that space and that energy and those discussions around that. So
are you a parent yourself?
I absolutely
How many
am.
kids?
I have 2 beautiful daughters. So,
okay.
Yes.
So tell me about some of the challenges you faced as a parent with 2 young, beautiful women.
Yeah. Well, they're 25 and 23 now. So.
Okay. Maybe many years ago.
Many years ago.
Maybe 15,
yeah,
15, 18 years ago.
But really, I think for them, sometimes I've gone back and said to them, how did you do this, or why this? And it was because I
What worked and what didn't, right?
Totally, yeah. And it was because I modeled it. They saw me, and I'm not perfect. And if I wasn't perfect at something, I definitely would admit that and say, okay, well, let's work on this together, or this will be something that will really move us forward. And we kind of get the family on board. And it was just the 3 of us for 17 years. So yeah, it's just really boils down to what are you going to put into practice as a family on a day-to-day basis, and having those discussions about what it really does mean to be successful. And
did you use some of those experiences as a parent to model some of the programs with Beautiful Inside Academy?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me about some of those programs that you offer.
Well, I do group coaching. So I run a group coaching academy for 13 weeks twice a year. And I do private one-on-one coaching with teenage girls all year long. I also do events and have been working with moms, and have been coaching some moms as well. So how can we do that? How can we help our relationship with our daughter better? So that's a lot of what I'm offering right now.
What advice would you give to a lot of moms today to really strengthen that relationship with their daughters?
Okay, I love that question. So the question I often put forth to my moms is, who do you need to be so she can be who she needs to be? And so it is like Dr. Christian Northrup kind of talks about it like this. It's kind of like osmosis. So when we're engaged in personal work, when we're modeling healthy relationships, when we're modeling healthy self-talk, when we're modeling healthy body image, so all of those things. So my coaching with the moms is like, where are those areas where you still feel that you need to up level, or those areas that you see in your daughter that she's struggling? Does she mirror that from you as well? And so it's not about shaming or blaming. It's just about this exciting exploration of how can we heal that within us as moms, so that automatically can give our daughters a different launching pad.
How can we help our daughters achieve their full potential in life?
Well, I truly believe it's mindset work. It's not being the victim. It's like really helping them.
Being the victor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Being the victor and unpacking what are those gifts, and what is your purpose, and what are those decisions of destiny, and how to give them those inner strength and those inner tools when those storms come. And to not be seeking so much external validation, but teaching them how to validate from within, and teaching them how to connect to their spiritual source, and teaching them how to access access, you know, all of those giftings on the inside, and then we'll see what strong young women do, right? Like right now I have...
And they could be mentors to other young women, right?
Absolutely.
I've been where you are.
Totally.
Let me show you the way.
Absolutely. And that's kind of my mission. Like I have 19 powerhouse teenage girls in my academy right now, and I just was like, you watch out for them, because these are our future leaders.
That's awesome. Now you have mother-daughter events as well. Tell me a bit about those.
Yeah, I do. So lots of times I'll have the moms and then I'll have mothers and daughters come together, and it's just about how do we really strengthen this relationship? How do we bond together? Because at the end of the day, like it is such a sacred, beautiful relationship. And I know for me, being a mom has just been one of the greatest gifts, and one of the things that I just want to shout from the rooftops that I feel like I've been able to do so well. And so bringing them together in that space of honor and just having the girls understand that this woman right beside you, I mean, she was your age once too, and they're like, really? It's like, oh, I never thought of it that way, right? But, you know, it's like, access her wisdom, like, let her speak into your life. Or girls, you know, how can you look at this differently, you know, when your mom's telling you, hey, this is what I want for you. And then just teaching the moms how to talk to the girls, and just doing a lot of that work so that they can see each other a little bit more clearly.
What can parents learn from their kids?
So much.
Because I mean, as parents, we like to teach our kids lots,
Yeah.
right? So.
Well, I think that our kids are our greatest teachers. And so the wounding or the things that they're dealing with, it's just like, and the way they're reacting, sometimes it does have something to do with us. It has to do with like, okay, well, how have I allowed that behavior? You know, what do I need to heal in me? Or like, for example, like when my daughter turned 18, you know, I was just like a lot more paranoid because that's where some stuff had happened to me. And so, but yet that was a gift, because it was like, okay, Mama Bear, time to heal that. And so then I can graciously say to my daughter, wow, I'm realizing this. And sorry if I've been like overprotective, but, and then that bonded us closer together. And so it's just a beautiful, beautiful mirror if we choose to look at it that way.
Renee Peterson with Beautiful Inside Academy, thanks so much for joining me in studio today.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.